I was told a story about a woman who was in childbirth in Aurora, and she was giving birth during the night, and in fact the baby was born with no problems. However, then there was a problem with the placenta coming down. Now, in a hospital, this would probably be a relatively routine procedure to fix. However, in this isolated, disadvantaged village with no health attendants on hand, this was quite a problem for the villagers. And a number of the people then went on foot, walking around the island or hurrying around, trying to locate a vehicle that could take this woman to hospital. One car, the battery was flat, another car, the tyres were flat, these kind of problems, and they ran out of time, and unfortunately that woman passed away. Now, the reason why that story is significant is because the villager who told me that story said that if they'd had mobile phone reception at that time, he's confident that they would have been able to save that woman because they would have saved time in locating a vehicle to get her to hospital. He also said that if that was to happen again, something like that, that he believes they'd be able to save the person. So he saw the mobile phone as a huge benefit in terms of emergency situations. But there are limitations on the effectiveness of the mobile phone as well. Gering Balapini is a woman who lives in Aurora caring for her children and her ageing father. She told me about how her father died, and she believes this was in part due to her inability to locate a vehicle to take him to hospital. So a similar story to the childbirth one and the time that it took her in trying to locate a vehicle. Now, she said that she believes the mobile phone would help in a situation like that. And she said that if her mother was to become ill, she would use her mobile phone to call for help. She said, we want her to be with us, so therefore we would pay for the car. However, if we don't have money, we wouldn't be able to pay for the car. We'll stay with mother and she'll die. And everything you think of is the money system. So this is really showing that the mobile phone has limitations in its effectiveness. It can help people perhaps in emergency situations, but other things need to line up, such as transport access and money and so on, in order for things to be possible like that. Now, another limitation also related to transport. Here is the cocoa fermentary in Aurora. This is the only cocoa fermentary in the village, and cocoa is the main cash crop that's grown in Aurora. So all the villagers from Aurora bring their wet cocoa beans to this fermentary, inside of which they're processed in preparation for sale. Now, the owners of the cocoa fermentary are here, and I interviewed this man, Mox Naing, and he told me about how he doesn't use the mobile phone to find out which buyers are purchasing at which prices. You see, the mobile phone literature talks about people like him using mobile phones to contact different buyers and work out where to send their goods. However, he said because he has such limited transport access, and because the transport, when he can organise it, they probably already have a predetermined destination in mind. Therefore, he doesn't use the mobile phone. It's of no advantage to him at all to be able to phone the buyers because he can't take the wet beans, the processed beans, sorry, to where he wants them to go anyway. So, are mobile phones an economic boon or a financial burden for people in Aurora? Well, many of the villagers talked to me about the expenses associated with owning the mobile phone. They said that it costs them a lot of money, they felt that it wastes their money, and that it's too expensive for them. A huge number of the non-owners, so the 3/4 of people who did not own mobile phones, said that the reason they didn't own a mobile phone was because it was too expensive. In terms of income generation activities then, it seems that the mobile phone is not having much of an impact in Aurora. The mobile phone maybe will be able to help in the future, but with access to transport and markets so limited, it seems that the mobile phone's effectiveness in improving people's lives in terms of income generation is also limited. So there are qualifications on the mobile and its uses, both in business and in family medical emergency situations. To be clear on this, let's look at some survey results. So this is one of my favourite questions from the survey. I asked people about their responses. Do they think mobile phones are a good thing or a bad thing in Papua New Guinea? And what I found is that you can see that a small number of people felt that the mobile phone is a negative thing in Papua New Guinea. about half of the people thought it's a good thing for Papua New Guinea, and nearly half thought that they have mixed feelings, seeing both benefits and drawbacks associated with mobile phones. So why do people think this? Well, the most common positive thing that was told to me is that it's easy to talk to friends and family who are a long way away, so they can keep in touch with relatives in other parts of the country. And this social benefit was told to me again and again as the thing that people see as the best thing about mobile phones. Other benefits included being able to send messages to ask for assistance, being able to ring instead of walking somewhere, which makes life easier, and spending less money on transport, so they can send a message rather than having to spend money on ferry tickets and so on to convey a message. And of course emergencies, which I've already talked about. In terms of negatives, there were two common negative things that came up repeatedly in Aurora. They're in relation to sex and crime. So in terms of sex, the mobile phone was seen as a facilitator of sexual liaisons. So it was felt by the local people that the mobile phone would be perhaps increasing instances of adultery and maybe leading to young people having inappropriate relationships and possibly having unwanted pregnancies. With respect to crime, criminals in Papua New Guinea are known as rascals, and it was felt that rascals could use their mobile phones to coordinate their activities. For example, maybe they might see someone walking along who looks like they're carrying something expensive, and they can phone ahead to their mates down the road and organise for them to attack that person and hold them up and steal that thing. It's interesting to note that a number of people had their mobile phones stolen before my visit in Aurora, which I think is significant because they hadn't even had mobile phone reception for very long at that time. Other negative comments were about money, as I've mentioned. So the mobile phone service is too expensive for us, they said. They said it might be all right for people in towns earning wages, regular wages, but for subsistence people like us, it's too expensive. So in conclusion, you can see that the mobile phone has a limited impact in Papua New Guinea. I feel that there is a limited impact due to things such as the cost factor. So that limits both the uptake of the mobile phone as well as the usage of the mobile phone. I think that there are other issues which impact in people's lives, such as the limited transport access and so on, which mean that the mobile phone has limits in its effectiveness. In terms of being very important, I think that particularly in times of crisis, this was explained to me about the medical emergencies such as snake bites and childbirth and other medical complications, where the mobile phone could really be important in saving people's time and perhaps saving lives. However, there are limits, I think, on what the mobile phone can achieve, and I've talked about that. In terms of traditional communication techniques, these are still existing, and I was very surprised to find out how much people are still using the mobile phone but also the traditional communication techniques on almost a daily basis to convey a range of messages. So I guess my point too is that I think the mobile phone, there's now more options. People can use the mobile phone to convey a range of messages, but they also have a range of communication tools. So it just really adds one more tool to their toolkit of communication, if you like. So I hope this presentation has provided some insights for you about mobile phones in Papua New Guinea and mobile phones in the lives of rural poor people. In this research project, I will be looking at other villages over time, so I hope that I'll be able to share some of my findings with you from other places at a later date.